Hey everyone, Harriet here. Hope you're doing okay. Today I'm back with Stu and we're going to talk about wrestling of 2022. It's been a quiet year.
Yeah, but nothing extraordinary has happened. The landscape hasn't changed in any way, shape, or form at all. No.
No, no. Oh my god. It's it just seems like every week or every month something has happened this year. It's unreal. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, it's been one of those years where where yeah, like you said, where one minute you're like, oh yeah, yeah, nice easygoing month. The next minute, what the hell just happened there?
I know.
It's just insane what the level of stuff that's happened from people suddenly not being in the company to suddenly being back to doing this to doing that to it's just hype not being realized. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy.
It has. I mean, at the beginning of the year we had stuff happening, with Shane taking over Royal Rumble, making it all about him. And you think that was probably one of the biggest news things that happened of the year. But then, obviously, as time crept on, it kind of built and built and built and built. And it just, it was just like, that was nothing compared to a lot of
It's
stuff that happened.
gone from here comes the money to there goes the money.
Yep.
It's Yeah, it just WWE and AEW have had a really intriguing year, both for some for the wrong reasons, and some. Yeah, and even today I was watching a video back of some of like the top wrestler, when it says top, some like injuries from the year, and videos of that was just WWE stuff, and I was like, oh my lord, when they're suddenly showing you, and you're thinking some of those weren't even majorly reported. The only majorly reported ones you had were like Big E was the big one for the
Oh,
year.
God,
That
that
one
was.
from
Yeah. Oh, go on,
I
sorry,
think
yeah.
it was, I think it was from Ridge Holland that one the incident took place of that one with in a tag match with Kofi, and then watching that back and you're like,
Oh, that was scary. That was
oh
terrifying. It's like, thank God he's okay, but still undecided what his future's going to be. But yeah, that was just like, when I read that the next day, I was just thinking, because he showed like he can move his hands, and obviously that's the most
yeah,
important thing. And I was just like, thank God. But also, you think, well, people still get injured. People say it's fake, but it's just like the injuries are not fake. They're
well, it
definitely
is
not.
it is very far from freak. Freak. It's a new word. It's very far from fake, and you watch clips like that, and you're like, and you're just thinking, bloody hell. But then if you think about it, in a year where that happened, and it's still not one of the bigger news stories of the year,
No.
you just don't know you just don't think what could top it. But so much has
Oh,
happened over the last 12 months that it's kind of it's incredible. And I suppose we'll pretty much we'll talk about it as we go through. I imagine the different kind of things and also what's coming up and who we think has been some of the top talent of the year and things like that. I suppose we'll cover off, but. Yeah, it's just been a hell of a year for both companies. Normally, one company has the worst year than the other, but this year both had biggish stories happen,
yeah.
and it's been kind of like, whoa. Granted, WWE's one of the biggest stories of WWE's year. One of the probably, I think Eric Bischoff said it's the biggest. To quote Eric Bischoff, it's the biggest news story in the sport of pro wrestling for the last 20, 30 years, in
Yep.
his opinion. And we'll talk more about that, I'm sure. But so it's stuff like that where you think, okay, what the heck happens in 2030, 2023 then? Because not much can top that, so or top these kind of things. So
You literally had everything and more in 2022 in regards to news.
yeah,
Because I think even Cody Rhodes being in WWE and having an injury in WWE, that injury, by the way, oh my God, how?
yeah. I mean, I mean that's one of the big stories I think of the year, because and it crosses both companies, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because he's an AEW original. He was the AEW founder. Historically, on one of the first AEW events, he was beating up a chair like with a hammer to represent Triple H and the King of Kings. And next thing you know, within a couple of years, he's actually back in that company.
Yeah.
and it's absolutely incredible. And it's quite a few people been saying that they wouldn't, didn't expect it because he's a product that's been made outside of that company, and they're allowing him to bring in his fully packaged character and persona into the company,
Yeah.
and that does not happen that often in WWE, if ever. It's a very rare thing for them to do because they've got this whole WWE system, they've got this whole WWE way of thinking, and they've had it for years. It works in some cases, it misses in quite a lot of cases. So for them to take a punt and bring in this external one was well, it wasn't a punt because Cody's an established talent. He's got that. He's put in the work on the indie circuit and in AEW to become this really talented. He was really talented before, but he's come in and brought in this fully functional thing for them to work with and work with really well.
Yeah.
Did right from the word go. He really came in, went hell to leather, really showed that he was in for the company, even when he got injured.
Yeah.
I mean, that was insane. That bruise, I think it was a Hell in a Cell that he fought. That
Yeah.
bruise, and it's one of the moments of the year for me because he just comes out and he still puts on an incredible performance, even though he's
Yeah.
probably in so much pain. And there was no more. I mean, they said prior to the match there was nothing more he could do because he'd already ripped the muscle clean off in the weight room because he did that in the weight room, because he injured himself on
Yeah.
Raw prior, then he ripped it off in the weight room even more. And then he came out and wrestled, and then remember when he took his coat off, the
The
reaction from the
slow reveal.
audience,
Yeah. Even I was
the
watching
audience
it.
reaction was one of the biggest reactions of the year. And
Mm.
how, Seth Rollins must have seen it backstage, because if you'd have seen that reaction for the first time in that ring, you would have reacted, and no matter, even the best performer in the world could not hide
No.
how bad that looked. Remember watching it back and going, "Oh my God!" I just was like, "It's insanity."
It. Oh God. Yeah. It really was. Speaking of another big return, CM Punk to AEW. That was like another big
Was that
thing.
this year or was that tail end of last year? I always get confused with that because so much has happened in the short period of time.
Let
I'm
me
like,
double
really, was
check.
that this year?
I think. Let me double check. I'm sure it
I know
was.
he got his first title win in the company this year.
I think you're right. I think it was 20. Yes, sorry. I apologize. It was. So, but yeah, CM Punk, he had like one of the biggest scandals of the year with the fight at All Out. Well, he was one of the many, 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 many people and a dog that, I'm not kidding you, that was involved in this backstage fight.
Yeah, it starts at the press conference because I remember watching the press conference, and it starts at the press conference, and it kind of then ended up in the locker room because the people who were named in the fight weren't happy with it. So named in the press conference weren't happy, so they kicked off, and it was the Elite, it turns out, versus him and his, I think, a friend of his in the back who'd been working with him on AEW. And yeah, watching the press conference back, he's got points. What he's saying isn't, it has a few points to it. I think he was angry. I think he was tired of things overshadowing his work, and so I think he was a kind of in parts of what he said and did. He was right. Could he have found a better way to do it and deal with it? Yes.
Yeah.
In retrospect, could we all be like that and find better ways of dealing and doing things? Yes. I think from his perspective, he just had enough, and enough was enough.
Yeah.
And he was tired of all these rumors. He was tired of all it keeps getting asked these random questions during press conferences, and he can't just talk about what a great time he's just had in the ring. I think he just got tired of it, and he just exploded, having read weeks and months of rubbish online and stuff like that. And I think it all just became too much in that instance for him, and he was tired, and he just had this incredible match, which he had. He had a really good match prior to that.
Mm.
And I think trouble with AEW is I think they are becoming a bit too politicky behind the scenes. Possibly, I think the way over time it started off with just the Elite, Cody Rhodes and Tony Khan taking full, doing their control, and then as time's gone on, the Elite have kind of phased more out of the control of what they used to be in and it's been more of Tony Khan controlling things. And what we saw over this period of time when all this kicked off was people that we knew had been in the background doing a lot of kind of locker room leadership roles, like Chris Jericho, for example, who's a very big locker room leader back in AEW, taking more of a front during that point and telling it, sitting, doing speeches in the locker room from all of the reports. So let everyone calm down here. Don't be like you're being. So, and I also think part of CM Punk was not happy with what was going on, what was happening with MJF and what MJF was doing. He wasn't happy with any of that either, and the way that was being dealt with. And I think all of that was just added to this frustration that boiled over.
Yeah. And it ended up with a lot of suspensions. I mean, CM Punk is out now anyway with an injury because he injured his foot during the celebrations. So he's out for a bit. We don't know if he's back or not, but yeah, there was a few fire-ins. I mean, the Elite and Kenny Omega are now back because they were the ones who were involved. Though, be it, they did kind of like make sure to let Chicago know that they didn't really care if they upset anyone with like the biting and like moves that Punk did. So it's silly. I mean, the whole thing was very marred, and I got very it kind of got like not annoying, but it was just like very disappointing to hear each time. Like there was more stuff coming out, and it was just a case of it was souring AEW. Even though I don't watch it, but still, it was still kind of like I feel sorry for those who do because it's kind of spoiling it for anyone else who's trying to enjoy it, sort of thing.
I think it became more of the story of AEW than it needed to be. I think, yes, it did need to be told. The story did need to be known. It was news. It was big. It was a massive thing. But AEW was becoming, and I don't know how this has changed up until now. I mean, from what I can tell from following it, and I watch AEW regularly, I think the backstage politicking and locker room stuff is slightly eased a bit. I know that it's still ongoing in the CM Punk thing with recently FTR. One of them there, I think it's Dax Harwood from FTR, saying on a podcast recently, look, why doesn't it? I just want everyone to shake hands and move on. And then CM Punk commented on a retweet of that, or on an Instagram post of that, with a thumbs up or saying what he did there. So it's kind of like still got more legs. I think it is going to drag into 2023. I think once Punk is healed enough, I think he will. Will he come back? When he come back, it's still the $64,000 question. If he does come back, it's going to be pretty much in a similar way to MJF. There won't be any announcement. I would say for the best way to handle it is for no announcement to happen, just for a shock return out the blue to happen and leave it at that. I think that would be the best way to do it. If he doesn't come back, arguably it's a loss in terms of optics for AEW because they made such a monumental amount out of the fact they brought him back, pushed it to the cows come home, they put him on a championship run, they put all of this thing behind it, and then to not be able to control that situation or to seemingly not be able to manage it correctly doesn't look good on them and the systems they've got in place. Granted, they have since changed those systems and moved those systems around a bit more and put more people in set positions now to avoid those kind of things where so the politicking shouldn't happen because, of course, the Elite were exec producers or producers at one point, and now I don't think they are now. I think they are. If they are, they don't have as much power as they once did. So I think maybe that might be a bit more different, and Khan has more of the control of creative than others previously did. Here's an interesting thing. I think from their perspective, hopefully now they've shored all that up and they've got all that running smoothly. We should see less of this. Although we did then get the MGF standoff, which we had, which I think was good, but I think there was as much kayfabe and storyline in that as there was actual stuff in it. I do think, as he puts it in the bidding war of 2024, he will probably go to WWE. I think he's WWE bound. I don't imagine unless Tony Khan is willing to throw literal heaps and bags of money at him, which he already has done.
But with MGF as well, he was also, as well as CM Punk, I think it was like 10 years ago, maybe more, or maybe less, I don't know to this day, had his own infamous pipe bomb. To this day, we don't know if it was a work or a shoot. I reacted to it on here. It kind of was very divided in regards to people saying that it was either a shoot or a work, but my gosh, it was still like jaw dropping in regards to listening to what he had to say. It really was.
I think the difference between this one and the MJF one and the CM Punk one is that CM Punk one, we know there was some legitimate beef there. We know he had some issues at the time, and we know that a lot of what he said turned out it was more legitimate, wasn't less of a work than people thought it was. With this one, with the Tony Khan and MJF one here, it's difficult because we knew there was some history of MJF wanting more money, him feeling underpaid. There were rumors backstage about it, but they weren't ever confirmed beyond being rumor. And the pipe bomb drops, and people are beginning to think, oh, well, maybe there's something to it. However, because MJF is very good at managing his creative or getting his creative across, a lot of people were like, is this just a work? Is this part of their long ongoing plans they've got to build his character across a period of time? Because it wouldn't be unheard of for someone to do that. So part of you, we still don't know. I mean, yes, he was off television for a good long while. He didn't do a lot of signings that he was supposed to do. All of that could have been down to a work. Yes, he did get a pay rise, pretty much from what people have been told, that he did get a pay rise. So it's tricky, and he still does similar pipe bombs to what he did before. Not pipe bombs, similar, like his speeches are very much unfiltered, it would appear, certainly. So I don't know. He's a tricky one. But I think when it comes to that bidding war in 2024, as he loves to refer to it, I think we will see a lot of interesting developments then. I think right now, I think he's kind of there. Him and AEW seemingly on good terms. They're just going with this phenomenal run that he's on now. They're building him up, and building him up, and building him up. And I think that's what they need to do. They need to build MJF up. They can't just put the championship on him and then all of a sudden have him lose it 6 weeks to 2 months later. He needs a sustained run. They need to be unafraid to do that sustained run to keep him happy. If they don't, and they take and then this just turns to be a short run, he loses to Bryan Danielson, and that's it, then it's a wasted opportunity. And I think you will then only end up pushing him out the door, effectively.
Yeah, because you're right. 2024 is going to be interesting when his contract is up. I think a lot of contracts will be up in 2024 as well. So,
and he's in 23 as well. I think it's an interesting point. Going back to something we touched on earlier with Cody Rhodes, is that MJF is a Cody Rhodes guy. He was one of the people Cody Rhodes brought in. So there's a lot of Cody Rhodes guys contracts coming up over the next couple of years. So there's a possibility that that's a huge influence and factor in Cody's still in WWE at this point, which all indications are no reason why he wouldn't be, and could be a case of he could help facilitate that move over into that WWE position, and then it would be really, really interesting. But again, it depends on what WWE's position is at the time, who's doing what there, and then as to how they bring in and manage that transfer of character, really. But and I don't know if MJF owns the MJF one in the same way Cody owns his whole package. That's the other thing. Is it the MJF one purely an age? I know he's like, from what I've seen in the past, he was that kind of guy on the Indies when he was on the Indies and other companies. He was that kind of a guy. I don't know how he will be if he did transfer over to WWE at some point. That's another mystery, I guess.
Yeah. And speaking of management, I think undoubtedly one of the biggest news segments of the year, if not ever, Vinnie Mac.
Eric Bischoff, I alluded to this again earlier, put it rightly. It is probably the biggest news story of the last 10, 20 years in the business, because it is the one people did not think Vince McMahon leave WWE. They thought he would die in his office, to
I
put it bluntly.
I legitimately thought the same thing. I was just thinking he's either gonna collapse in the middle of the ring, or blow his quads again. You don't know, or he will, like you said, like in the office, gone. I literally thought they would be clawing him away from his desk or the ring,
Yeah.
but yeah, I still remember the night it happened. I think a lot of people, well, we weren't expecting it, to be honest. It was breaking news on a Friday night. And this was after, we won't talk about what's going on because that's still ongoing with the investigations and whatnot, but it was kind of the whole thing. He was like, nothing ever happened, and then suddenly he's gone. But then again, we had the whole switcheroo of Stephanie stepping down, then taking over. Then she kind of went into a double role with Nick Khan, and now Triple H pretty much has rejuvenated WWE.
And as you said, that rightfully, the start months before. I mean, it was like, I think it was late last year. It was in December. She was off with his illness. Triple H was, and watching those interviews back at the early part of the year of this year, mid to early part of this year, heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I'm watching those back and hearing what he's going through and seeing the sheer emotion in him and how he was then, and he pretty much was out of the business at this point. He was pretty much, although he's on indefinite leave, it was pretty sure he wouldn't come back. So, and as Stephanie had resigned at this point as well, and we were never given. That's the other thing to think about here. The other part of the story, which has been lesser focused on. She'd gone at this point.
Yeah.
There was no reason why, and that's the other thing, we didn't know what her reasoning for going was, and that's never been caught out. Although, watching the interviews with Triple H and watching kind of what he was saying in them, you would kind of think it's because Stephanie realised the importance of family and wanted to spend more time with her girls as they were growing up, and the same kind of thing about wanting to spend more time with her husband after he'd gone through this incredible ordeal. Then, of course, the Vince Came a Man thing happens. It's almost like the where were you, on this day. Like, now it's the where were you the day Vince McMahon was resigned. And
Yeah.
I just remember seeing journalists having to record videos out of pubs.
Yeah.
That because they'd been in the pub after work, and then Vince McMahon had just dropped it. It was the way he did it. He just dropped it on Twitter. That was it. It was his announcement was a Twitter post, and you're thinking, wow, okay. Previously, they've just been happy birthday posts that you've been posting on Twitter, and now you're resigning. I mean, wow.
It's a step up.
It's a step up. I mean, it's massive, and that's not. I mean, whatever he's done, like you say, it's still the full implications of which we'll probably never know. We'll see hints and and bits and bobs popping out here and there, and people will post he did this, he did that. Not condoning whatever he did. He's done some pretty twisted and stupid things. But let's also bear in mind he created the wrestling landscape of today. Without Vince McMahon, there would be no AEW in its current format. There could be potentially something, but then again, Tony Khan was heavily influenced by AEW and WCW, and the product as it exists today would not be what it is without Vince McMahon. There is no denying that, and commenters can comment on YouTube videos all they like, but it is true. Every person from Eric Bischoff through to Tony Khan will all say the same thing if you ask them that there would be nothing without this man.
Yeah.
WrestleMania, I mean, look at that. He created that. So he's got this legacy. Unfortunately, the way the legacy ends isn't the way he would like it to have ended. Then he was stupid enough to make his own... that was his own stupidity that got him in that situation in that respect.
Yeah.
But you can't argue with what he achieved. There is just an incredible level of achievement there.
Definitely.
It's a shame he had to bloody mess it all up.
Yeah. Shot himself in both feet.
Then conversely, the people that sat under his learning tree, like Stephanie, Triple H, Nick Khan, are now running WWE. The stock, at the time they were saying that the stock was going to dip, and people would have stockholders would have problems with that. Did it though? No, the stock actually consistently stayed. It dipped a little, yes, it naturally would do because there's a lot of controversy and scandal. Then it recovered quite well. Stock recovered very well and has continued to steadily be at a good level. We're talking about, I think it's like the $70 to $80 mark, I think. So WWE stock is doing great under the new ownership, under the new Triple H era for creative, and the Stephanie McMahon and Nick Khan era for CEO. So it's co-CEO. So I think, in a sense, it's benefited company them going away. It's not hurt him going away.
No.
A lot of people were annoyed with the creative. I mean, the early part of this year, constantly people would. There was always calls for him to retire. There was always calls for him to leave the creative alone. Raw was being rewritten up until literally when it was on air. It was being rewritten. Raw and SmackDown. Now, of course, you seem to have like plans. You seem to have cleverly put together storylines. You've got all of the people that have been fired when Triple H wasn't there brought back in some way or another. Arguably, some of it still not worked, and some are working better than others.
Yeah.
And you've got the continued development and the signings of those, which have been phenomenal. Shame Keith Lee was employed, because I think if Keith Lee hadn't been in AEW's employ, he would be straight back in, and I think he would have been picked up his phenomenal run again. It's things like that we're seeing come through, and the creative's the best it's ever been. Well, not the best it's ever been. Is getting a lot better than it was at the end of 2021, beginning of 2022. It's ending 2022, 2023 on an interesting level.
Yeah, I think in a way, because with obviously, like you said, Triple H being ill for the first half of the year, and then NXT. His baby literally just being destroyed from the inside out, but now the 2.0 brand is pretty much no more. It's back to the black and gold, which is great. And now Shawn Michaels is running that. Regal is possibly on his way back as well, which I don't know where he's going to go, but I'm looking forward to him coming back. And then Triple H literally just bringing back the people that had been fired, and what he wanted was his vision for these people to go into the main card. A lot has worked, a lot hasn't, but it is trial and error, because, you know, obviously this is new. But I will say SummerSlam was pretty much the beginning. You could tell it was the beginning of Triple H's reign of, right, this is my vision, this is how it's going to be. And it's kind of been on an even pace now, which is good. We've had the odd dip, but it's not going to be perfect. I think, like, the beginning of each Raw or SmackDown, it was a case of, oh, who's he bringing back this week, sort of thing, because that seemed to be the thing. And I think now we're on a ground that I think he has what he has. They're working on the storylines, building up now to WrestleMania, because that's the next big thing. Royal Rumble is obviously going to be the beginning of it. I am seriously looking forward to Royal Rumble this year. Or next year. I think it's probably going to be one of the best it has been in a long time, if they can get the right people in it, because there are rumours of people coming in the men's and the women's. But I think if it's worked well, it could be one of the best. And I think if Triple H just keeps the way he is now, then I have good hopes for 2023 with WWE.
Yeah, I think the Shawn Michaels point you alluded to there, he loves the role of teacher. He's really enjoying that role in NXT, and from all accounts, he's doing a cracking job with it. And that's and obviously being the NXT commissioner kind of role as well, he's having fun with that, which is great. William Regal, the talk of him coming back in, because his son currently is in WWE, from what I understand anyway.
Yes.
So it kind of makes a natural fit for him to come back, and it was a massive shock when he left, a huge shock, because he was very big behind the scenes, and everybody was recognised that he, again, is another one of those people in the business with a tremendous learning tree to sit under. You've got all of that knowledge that you can soak up from him. And he's a man that never won a major WWE championship either, yet he is seen as one of the biggest villains to learn from in terms of his presentation, the psychology, and everything like that, and promo ability. So let's take out the bit where they put him in funny costumes and stuff, but he still was talented in that. I hear that it's possible vice president's role for him, because I know that his deal with Tony Khan is for a while, kind of thing. So I think that was partly what they've agreed on that.
Yeah. You kind of froze a little bit on my screen there, so I got Tony Khan, but I didn't get the rest of that.
Yeah, I saw that. I don't know what the hell is going on.
We're having a few technical issues here, folks. Don't worry, we're still carrying on. We're gonna get to the end of this. Damn it.
The Tony Khan thing was that they had an gentleman's agreement that he wouldn't go back straight onto television.
That's fair enough.
So I think that, to me, makes sense because he's come off of AEW right in the middle of a really good storyline. The end of his storyline, that turn, was brilliant, executed superbly, really good, strong, a nice bit of creative from AEW, I thought. And not only did he go out, when they say when you're on your way out, you're supposed to help the people you're working with and push their storylines through. I thought he did that exquisitely with MJF.
Yes.
I thought he put him over in a monstrously great way. And so it was good to see that kind of level continue, and shows that he is still that honourable worker that we all thought he was. So that, fair play to Regal. I'm looking forward to see what he does when he comes back in terms of his role. I think you'll find him probably doing a lot of coaching stuff again, which will be really useful.
Yeah.
And maybe eventually in the long term he'll come back and do NXT. Or maybe they'll have him turn up and just go, War Games! And then that'll be it. That's pretty much what a lot of people love to hear him do sometimes as well.
I love it.
So it's stuff like that we'll hopefully see him do again. But yeah, I think going into 2020, into like 2023, the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, Road to WrestleMania season, I think this will be interesting because there's a lot of pressure on Triple H. This is the first WrestleMania without Vince McMahon. Let's not undersell that. The man has done every WrestleMania on a creative level up until that time period now. So that's a good, I don't know how many, it's 30 plus years worth of events he's done.
It'll be 39 next year.
The 38 events that he's run. It's creative lead. Now you've got Triple H about to do that, but not only that is he taking creative lead for, he's taking creative lead for Raw, SmackDown, NXT, all of those roles, and they all have big shows running over that weekend. So especially NXT, because they'll have their own pay-per-view separate to that. I think it's normally on the night before or the Friday before. So you've got all of that. You've also got Triple H, possibly, as in the past as well. Hall of Fame has been decided by Triple H, I think, alongside Vince McMahon. Triple H was generally the man that kind of brought people in to do that and brought people in to be involved. Who's going to be taking that role on then? Because Triple H is far too busy doing creative, or is he doing that? And the one concern I have is all of this stuff he's doing is stressful.
Yes.
He's got heart problems. So as great as his creative has been, I'm also kind of on the side of I'd like him to dial it back a tiny fraction here, because he's putting a tremendous amount of pressure on himself. And the last thing I want to do is post WrestleMania him to suddenly retire full time from everything because he's put himself under too much pressure.
Exactly.
And he's done a tremendous amount of it. So yeah, you're right. I'm looking forward to next year's Royal Rumble. I think it's going to be fascinating to see how they push it, what storylines are going to bleed out of this year and into next year. In terms of that, what new storylines are we going to get brought in? I already hear rumblings of one or two, which could be really, really interesting from the women's and the men's side of things. So. And also, let's not forget, looking past 2023 as well, TV rights for both AEW and WWE are being negotiated in 2023. So a lot of people are saying, oh, AEW, massive increase in how much they're going to get. I don't know. It's a tricky one because, will they even do that? Will they do that? Will WWE have an increase in rights? Will they be sold to another company? Will they have their rights bought by, as rumoured, Disney Plus? Will Disney Plus become the rights holders for WWE, which has been milled around in the last year or two?
Yeah.
Will it go to Netflix? There's another rumour that's been generated around for a while for an international distribution contract. Who knows? But I doubt it, because the amount of money WWE make on the different markets which they actually broadcast in, from the UK with Sky and ITV, to also with AEW on ITV as well, they make so much money on these individual marketplaces. I can't see them selling out to one individual company unless it's a monstrous deal. They do. Company as a whole being sold in 2023 WWE, that's an interesting one, which is still kind of doing the rounds. But it's the only way to top the news of 2023, sorry, to 2022, is for 2023 to see WWE sold. That's that,
Yeah.
I think. And I can't see anything topping what's happened in 2022 from a WWE standpoint. And I can't see anything topping that next year, and I hope that nothing horrible does, because that would be terrible. But yeah, it's incredible. But yeah, it's been a hell of a year.
It has. It really has. So
let's not forget, we're also not talking about Bray Wyatt here, who's come back in 2023, 2022.
Yeah.
We've had him come back in one of the best creative moves of WWE's year from a creative standpoint. Although what they're doing with this now, I have no idea, because it's very weird at the moment.
It is trailing on a bit, I will admit. It's just a case of now, okay, we've had the spooky stuff, we're used to it, but can you just fast forward now? So
then I think this is the interesting thing for me, because I'm getting a bit bored, but then he is playing the long game. I'm seeing they're sowing seeds here. They're building a faction. They're, even Alexa Bliss is now alluding to this and acting weirdly and changing her function. There's talk about Bray Wyatt's brother who being behind the Uncle Howdy character, and they're going to have a whole faction of these and a whole stable coming in with him again, which is great.
Yeah.
So will we see that again? And if we do we see some of the previous people he's worked with coming back in these roles to have this stable and this faction?
Yeah.
That could be the end of the Bloodline, which is another great faction which has been built up over the last 12 months.
Yes.
Is that where last 2 years really, the Bloodline, 2-3 years? Is that what they're aiming for? Is that because right now there is no real threat to the Bloodline storyline? There is nothing else. The Sami Zayn stuff is great. It's comedy fodder. It's brilliant. It's fun. It's a really good entertaining period of time. But how are they breaking this up?
Yeah.
And because they're gonna have to. There's gonna come an end to the storyline eventually.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
But it's how they do it, and and they have to execute it creatively to keep the fans happy. Because if you just do it with anyone, if some random jobber walks in and then takes Roman, it isn't going to be creatively satisfying. It's going to cause an absolute nightmare of a situation. People are going to get pissed. But if they do it right and they build it slowly and they build up this authoritative group of people that they could do with Bray Wyatt, they could lead it quite nicely into WrestleMania. And job is done. He turns the apple cart, takes the title back, and runs with it under his new faction for as long as need be possible. Who knows?
Yeah, because honestly, like we said before, this year has had so many things happen. We can't talk about everything of this. But I know Wrestle Talk have done a brilliant video in regards to recapping. I'll put a link below. It's amazing. It's like an hour long. Worth your time, definitely, to watch it in regards to everything that happened. Because there was a lot of stuff even I was just thinking, oh yeah, I completely forgot about that. Because obviously lots of things overshadowed a lot of main things that we didn't know. So, we're coming to the end of 2022. It seems like it's been a long year, but also one that's just gone like that.
Yeah.
What have been your personal favourites? So I asked earlier, your pay-per-view, wrestler, and I think match. Yes, those were.
Yeah, for me it's a mixed year. I think in terms of content wise, because I think some of the Triple H stuff has been phenomenal. I think the Bray Wyatt creative has been one of my favourite things to watch, because I think it showed a real change in what WWE was doing. They went to a level they've never been before. They were shoving flyers on cars outside during the tapings. They were going to whole new levels that they'd never done, and to me that showed a real change, a departure for them as a company, and it was what they should have been doing, because they're a massive media conglomerate with a huge level of ability to do things, and what they did was great. The reveal of Bray Wyatt was exquisite, the way they did it. Even though everyone knew it was Bray Wyatt, pretty much from the word go. That whole way they did the reveal at the end of that Survivor series, you could literally, even watching it back, the goosebumps on goosebumps you got, the whole feeling that it left you with was phenomenal. Yes, on the downside, it still hasn't reached the potential we hope it was, but that I think will happen in 2023. But that was one of the moments of the year for me, and sadly, I think it overshadowed quite a few of the event matches that we've had because it was so well handled for me that it just showed that maybe some of the creative they've had throughout the year wasn't as well delivered on. What else was there? I think match-wise of the year, there's been so many individual blinders. I mean, some of the stuff you see on both AEW and WWE has been phenomenal. Stuff with the Elite coming back has been some of their work with the Death Triangle has been amazing. FTR are an incredible tag team, and anything you put them in is well worth literally the money you put them. Well, literally the money you pay them. So watching them again is always a highlight. So I can't individual, and I was thinking about this all day. And for the last couple of days, I can't put an individual performance above any other. I think there's been too many good ones, really, and I think it's unfair. At the same time, a lot of people say, "Oh, Logan Paul, Roman Reigns," from a WWE point of view. Yes, it was good, but it's because he's a celebrity and he's not supposed to be good at the sports entertainment. That's why people viewed that as a great match. So for me, it showed some skills. Not don't get me wrong, but don't think it ranks above the likes of Bryan Danielson, Hangman Adam Page, Roman Reigns when he's not teeing off with Logan Paul. He does great performances. The Drew McIntyres, the Seth Rollins, the Cody Rhodes, all of these performances they've delivered throughout the year. I don't think it ranks above those, so I would not include that in any of my top matches of the year, sadly. Not sadly, rightfully in my opinion, but yeah, so I can't really pick an individual match. It's easier for me to pick performance than it is matches, I think, throughout the year. Yeah, what about you for matches?
It's very cliche, but because I'm a big fan of Jackass, I truly love the Jackass match at WrestleMania. I remembered I watched that back from, it was the same weekend as HotaraCon, because the first evening I watched it, because I had an accident the night before where I fell and I was awake because I was in pain. But watching WrestleMania distracted me from it, and then on the way home on the train I caught the second night. And oh my god, I was on the quiet section of the train and I literally just had to hold myself because obviously they were going to kick me out of the silent train or the silent carriage of me just laughing at that match because it was just brilliant all the way through. Because the whole rivalry had been building up obviously since Royal Rumble, and it really did pay off in the end. In regards to the people who turned up, the Jackass feel in regards to how they used the props against Sami, and then the Wee Man power slamming Sami Zayn was just definitely brilliant. It was so good. That's what I would consider my match of the year. I know there's been hundreds, so many, but that one I always remember, and I do go back and watch if I just need a smile, in regards to just watching it. So yeah.
I will say that I left out there, actually think about it, Chris Jericho, some of the stuff he's been involved in AEW has been phenomenal. When you consider his age and you consider his point in his career, he continues to deliver, even with the Stampede type matches that they do. He continues to deliver and deliver on such a good level for me, and his level doesn't seem to drop, especially his stuff more recently with the Ring of Honor Championship. He was doing some great stuff with that. I mean, tapping out to the swing from Cesaro. What a brilliant creative piece of maneuvering. And again, I think the Sami Zayn match was good. I would say that, and I think, but more on an entertainment value than I think. And that's where it's difficult. And it is in the Vince McMahon era still, really.
This is it, yeah. It was one of the few matches that I really liked this year that Vince was still running.
Yeah, I think Sami had a big part of it too, because he's very good at these kind of comedic kind of situations he puts himself in, and he really plays them superbly. But I think who for you then has been a good talent through the year?
I'm gonna have to say Sami Zayn. I really have, especially in the last couple of months with the Bloodline. It has been phenomenal to see the whole. Is he with the Bloodline? Is he not with the Bloodline? I know we did talk about it earlier in regards to the turn is going to happen. It's going to disband, but especially what was the last pay-per-view that happened? Was it Survivor Series? War Games?
I think it's War Games. Yeah, Survivor Series with the War Games matches, yeah.
And the whole thing the week before of Sami talking to Kevin Owens. Because obviously that rivalry's been going for many years, but each time they have it, it always seems fresh. And this definitely was one of those times, especially when the week before Sami was just like, yeah, don't worry, I got you. Don't worry, everything's going to be fine. And then Jimmy basically still against this happening. And just the whole build-up of it from when he started to where it is now, I've really enjoyed. It just seems like this has been Sami's year. And obviously prior that, he didn't have a great year.
No.
He really didn't. So I have a feeling this definitely has rejuvenated his career. I really hope he does end up going for the title. I don't know when it will be. Obviously with WrestleMania, they've already kind of pre-decided it's going to be Rock or Cody. Rock or Roman or Cody, depending. Then again, I saw an article not too long ago saying even that's kind of up in the air what Roman's going to do. So, but honestly, I have to give it to Sami this year. I really do.
I think I'm struggling with this one because for me there's several people on the roster that I think that delivered throughout the year. I want to see, and I'm not a big mark for this individual either. Roman Reigns has done a steady job over the last 2 years and have really, you can't not say that he's not, because him alongside the Usos with all their troubles outside of the ring, or one of them's anyway, that they've done an incredible job. Of keeping a storyline current, which is hard work. It's really hard work to keep a storyline fresh, like they've done. And the Solo Sikoa being brought in, again, another good one. Is he going to be the one that does the turn on Roman or not?
Yeah.
People are wondering that now. There is such a different level of ability there to be able to keep a storyline going, which has been really good. So, and whenever they bring people into that storyline, whether it be Drew McIntyre or Brock Lesnar or Logan Paul, they tend to elevate them to their level, which is an extraordinarily impressive thing to do. Sami Zayn was always on their level anyway. He was at pure entertainer value, I think, and they've helped him deliver the storyline very well. He's been phenomenal on that, and the fact that he started up the Honorary Use thing and he's feeling a bit oozy, which made him a great character. I mean, phenomenal moments of the year. Well done and perfectly handled and completely unexpected, I would have thought, because I don't think this could have gone on been a quick flash in the pan, and it could have ruined storyline. But it's only elevated it, and that shows the skill of not only Sami Zayn, but also all of the bloodline there, because they've got to have that ability to work with that person and be able to manage their comic timing, to be able to match their ability in the ring, and they've just done it all the way across the board. So it's really good. Interesting to see where it goes forward, because with the SmackDown appearance of John Cena again this coming week,
the tag match,
should be interesting to see how they build that up. Will it and lead to the development of The Rock appearing in that as a third person to help back him up? Who knows? But I think going into 2023, it'll be interesting for that. But on the flip side, if we look at the other members of the roster, you've got things like, let's say, Seth Rollins to me has been one of the standouts, because you put him in any match this year with anyone, and they've put him with the likes of, to list off all the people he's been in programs with will take me ages, but
quite a lot.
Quite a lot, and he's done well in every single one of them. He's elevated when he's had title belts on him. He's elevated those. He's done really well with them. So he's definitely one I would say is underrated. Becky Lynch, I still think is a really great, solid performer, even though she's been in and out due to injury throughout the year. She's great. Natalia's had a good year for some of the stuff she's done. And so people like that. Who else was it? I want to say Sasha Banks would have had a good late year had she been in it, but unfortunately that whole system kicked situation still hasn't been resolved either. That's again one of the news stories we could have talked about earlier, which still hasn't had as an answer yet. It does, rumours are that she is going to start working for New Japan in 2023.
Yeah.
And she is due to appear on one of their cards in January, I believe, for January, February.
Wrestle Kingdom, yeah.
So that's going to be a 2023 thing. That'll be really interesting to watch that one develop. But she could have had a banner year. I think 2023 could be her year. And so, yeah, Bianca Belair, everyone seems to love Bianca Belair. I don't entirely think she's good in the ring, but I'm not a big fan of her. Asuka, it's a shame that the rumours are that she's taking an extended break at the moment, which is a shame because she is a phenomenal talent and I absolutely adore her.
Yeah.
Asuka, she's even got a YouTube channel which she does her own YouTube stuff on if you can follow Japanese. I've seen some stuff on and she's been really great on that. So I hope we see more of her in future, but she's had a good year. Outside of WWE, I think again Jericho, MJF have had a good year. They've done really well. FTR continue to do good, as I mentioned earlier. So them on the indie scene, I think Iron Myers is doing a great one considering his position. And he's recently re-signed with Impact Wrestling. Speaking of Impact, R.I.P. Don West, who passed away sadly on today from the Impact commentary old wrestling team with Tenay. So R.I.P. to him. Also, Matt Cardona for me on the indie scene purely has had a phenomenal phenomenal year again. The fact that man continues to push himself. He's doing wrestling musicals in New York now off Broadway. And then getting nominated for awards for those. Man is continually reinventing himself. He's doing a great job. He's still being employed, even though, he won championships again in this year. WA Championship he won, which considering the prestige of that particular belt title is incredible to add him to that lineage as well. So he's got this real history, and he's again another Cody Rhodes in that he's never won the big ones in WWE. So will 2023 see him come back, especially with the news of his partner shutting her Instagram account, her OnlyFans down and moving into WWE, potentially coming back into that because WWE were looking for a reality TV show alongside, I think it was they were looking for their next reality TV show. And rumours are it could be a Green and Cardona based show. And he's already teased his Royal Rumble appearance again.
Hopefully, yeah.
So I could still see it spinning into that. And I could see that. So I think for me, and then Cody Rhodes as well for WWE, again, a really good limited performance from him. But yeah, I don't know. Cardona for me probably on the indies, definitely, because he even made the PWI top 100 in 13th position, which someone who's only on the indie scene is no small feat to do. And he's his own best and worst PR sometimes, that man. So I think it's Cardona for me in WWE. I think in terms of AEW, it's going to be a whole mix of people. Again, with WWE, the ones I mentioned. So yeah, it's difficult, really, for me.
Well, what about your pay-per-view of the year? Because there's been quite a lot.
It's been a hell of a lot, and for different reasons, I would probably say, I don't know, actually. It's a tricky one, because I really enjoyed the Bray Wyatt bit at the end of Survivor Series. I don't think that's justifiably enough to take it over the whole one. Clash at the Castle was okay, wasn't as groundbreaking as it could have been, in my opinion. I think they missed a few marks on that. Purely for the nostalgia reasons, I think it's going to be WrestleMania for me. I think purely for the nostalgia front of it, there were some good matches on the card. Cody Rhodes' return was phenomenal. And the match around the Sami Zayn match was hilarious. There were some other, the Bianca Belair match was good against Becky Lynch, even though Becky Lynch didn't win, and they put her over, which was a bit of a shame. So yeah, I think that would be the one for me. That would be, I think that was Becky versus her at that one, but yeah, that would be one for me.
I'm gonna say Clash at the Castle. The reason being, I enjoyed it personally for a few reasons. One, I went to the watch along to watch it with the Wrestle Talk people, and it was good. It was a great atmosphere because obviously we did talk about this before, offline and online, how ridiculously expensive the tickets for Wales were. Just to see the show.
About doing Classic Castle 2 as well.
Oh,
which
really?
Makes me where there's almost rumours of it as a semi-regular thing. Largely, I think because they've already said that the AEW is coming over to the UK in 2023. So.
Yes. So it looks like it probably will be a thing. And but the whole the ending, was a bit. Not the ending of what happened with the result of Roman and Drew. The other ending. The singing.
Yeah. Let's hope that. Yeah.
I remember we were all sat in the crowd, and after all of us like being hyped up thinking Drew's gonna win, he's gonna win, and you could just feel the energy depleting in the room. And then we just sat there in shock. And then suddenly Drew McIntyre sings with, was it Tyson Fury? Is this?
Tyson Fury, yeah.
And then we're just sat there like, what? Just like, what's going on? But apart from that, I really enjoyed. The Gunther Sheamus match was phenomenal. Phenomenal, even. It was just brilliant because we had the reunion of Imperium as well. That was a shock. Dominic Mysterio's turn. I just remember in the crowd, kick him in the balls. to Dominic to Ray. It's just brilliant. There was other matches as well. There was a couple I didn't watch because I had to go get drinks and the line was very busy. But I remedied that. I had the network on my phone, so I was watching the network while I was in the queue. So I could still keep an eye on what was going on. I had like a gathering of people like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Sort of watching it as, I think it was the women's match we were watching. But yeah, that was personally one of my favourites. I also have to give out a shout to SummerSlam because that was pretty much the first of the rejuvenation of Triple H's first proper pay-per-view. And obviously we had some returns. Like Damage Control was a thing that was created. That's still a thing that's still in progress. Like I said, the Dipset Up and Down, that's probably one of the factions that's still trying to find their feet, I suppose. And it was just an overall great pay-per-view. And yeah, it kind of gave me hope for WWE again after watching that. And then obviously, I think Clash to the Castle was one of the next ones. I enjoyed that. And there hasn't been the pay-per-view since that I haven't enjoyed. I think they have been very good. I really actually missed having a pay-per-view in December for WWE because there wasn't one. SummerSlam or War Games was the last one, and then Day One was scrapped, which I can understand why. Because probably wrestlers don't want to wrestle the day after New Year's Eve. And then obviously Royal Rumble's the next one. So yeah, it has been like a big missing gap, and I don't usually say stuff like that. I think if Vince was still running and there was a gap, I'd be like, that's fine, just run on Royal Rumble. But yeah, the pay-per-views this year, I mean, even the AEW ones have been very good. I did catch a couple actually. I did watch and I fully enjoyed. I think the thing with AEW is they're very long. They're kind of, WWE was on the same thing of having 6-hour pay-per-views in one night, and then obviously WrestleMania was split into 2, which made it so much easier. But I think with AEW, because it has so many superstars, and there's still it's having the case of what WWE had in the past of not enough time to promote all these superstars, and now they're getting frustrated. It's finding the balance, and I think with WWE at the moment, 3-hour shows are perfect for pay-per-views because it's just enough to be like, okay, I'm happy, let's do the thing. And also for people in America, actually one thing for us, they're holding a lot of pay-per-views now on a Saturday, so now we can watch them, so we don't have to... And also people in America, I still remember one of my friends who went to WrestleMania, I think it was the last one before everything hit, and it was like 7-8 hours, and they didn't get back to their hotel room because of traffic and everything like 4 a.m. in the morning. it's because obviously people leaving the
Yeah, it's
stadium,
nuts.
coaches and delays, and it's just like, I'm kind of glad I didn't go. I mean, I would like to go to an American pay-per-view at some point, preferably either Royal Rumble or WrestleMania, one or the other, but I couldn't do that if it's like 4 a.m. in the morning. I just about managed NSP, and that was like 2 a.m. in the morning by the time I got home. But yeah, it's just a case of the pay-per-views have been really good this year, and hopefully it carries on, and hopefully AEW will find a good balance as well, because obviously they've only got like 2 shows a week. One's an hour, one's 2 hours, I think. Is that the case? Or are they both 2 hours? I don't know now off the top of my head.
I think with AEW, one of the things I have with them is that a lot of their weekly programming gets named in a pay-per-view style. So Fight for Fallen or Winter is Coming is this week, and it's like, you don't need to keep doing that. Save your naming conventions to your pay-per-views.
Yeah.
Keep them that way. Don't name your weekly shows. WWE name them Raw and WWE SmackDown. They name them those 2 brands. That's it. They don't deviate. NXT is the same. NXT. They don't need to. NXT does occasionally have like NXT Halloween or NXT War Game, whatever. NXT occasionally does that. However, WWE's main brand doesn't. And I think that's what AEW does a lot of, which they maybe need to dial back on in 2023 for me. I don't need the constant names. I don't need the constant things like that. Yes, some of the matches they're putting on these Winter is Coming kind of things are huge scale matches. You don't need to constantly name them every time, because it hurts and diminishes the brand that you're doing it. If it's on AEW Dynamite, let it be AEW Dynamite, because that's the brand you're building. So that's the big thing for me. But yeah, like I said, but I think pay-per-view in 20 or premium live event.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I'm gonna.
That's no. It's
I still call it pay-per-view.
Even I do as well. I'm not gonna lie. You know, it's for me. 2023 is gonna be, like you said, first full year of Triple H is run of them. I'm very curious to see how they pan out. Very curious to see what AEW is going to do with its bloated roster. WWE's roster is getting bloated too.
Yep.
How are they going to manage that across the board now? So it's going to be very interesting heading into 2023.
So I think this has been on a few wrestling channels, but what's one of your predictions of next year?
Kind of already touched on it. I think Matt Cardona and Chelsea Green, I think, will make a return to WWE in 2023. I hope they get being allowed to do their additional outside of WWE stuff, because that's a story as well we didn't talk about as well. Dana Brooke getting fired. I mean, that's another big story of 2022. That's how crazy this year has been, after she was making $500,000 allegedly on OnlyFans equivalent a week in her content. WWE didn't like it. They get rid of her.
Was that Dana Brooke or was that Mandy Rose?
Mandy Rose, sorry. Mandy Rose.
I was gonna say.
Dana Brooke. God. Sorry, Dana Brooke. Am I preempting something coming 2023 now? Yeah, Mandy Rose. I mean, that was an extraordinary story, considering her position at the time and how much she'd had an incredible run in NXT, a phenomenal run. So there was all sorts of stuff about that, and so again, another news story. Forgive my error.
But that only happened like last week.
Yeah.
That only happened last week. Yeah.
So it's an absolutely incredible. So going back to the performance for 2023 and what I think my prediction for 2023 will be Cardona back in WWE with Chelsea Green. I think that will be an interesting thing that could happen at WrestleMania. At Royal Rumble. If it doesn't happen at WrestleMania, it'll be a WrestleMania kind of thing possibly. If any, you'll be able to get a good idea of that happening if he suddenly announces a reality show for Chelsea Green. And you'll know that that's coming down the pike, because you can't imagine a world where a reality TV show doesn't have this married couple in it, and WWE on an E-branded show having these two in it, and him talking about going off to wrestle in the NWA and GCW and Impact Wrestling. I would struggle to see WWE being okay with that. But again, like I say, Chelsea Green shutting down her OnlyFans is a big sign of something coming out from her. So curious to see what that is like for me.
Yeah.
something's going to happen with Roman over the next few months. It'll either be, like you said earlier, it'll either be Cody Rhodes, or it comes back at the Rumble and wins, or it will be The Rock comes back and wins. You'll either find him, because don't forget there's a pay-per-view premium live event in between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania anyway.
Yeah.
So there could be some kind of a title break at that point where the two belts become single again. And then we see, but then it has worked well having one man control both across the time. So arguably, I still would like to see that stay. I think it really does add more of a combined, even though there are two shows, both are on different networks, which makes it problematic from a rights negotiation standpoint. So it'll be interesting, but I think for me the prediction will be that WWE do stay with their current rights holders for 2023. I think they'll probably go up in terms of their values for them. I think AEW will stay the same, with a possible Warner merger deal somewhere down the line, with a streaming deal in the pipe for them, because that's been talked about. So they'll be available on a streaming network of some kind as well, content. Yeah, I would. Well, what else would I think? I want to see WWE. What things I'd like to see the WWE do is more again with Seth Rollins. I think he's really so well suited to another run. I would love to see that. I would, from an AEW perspective, I want to see MJF's run continue, because I love what they're doing with him. I would like to see some more stuff done with Jericho again, because I really do enjoy his work. A lot of the younger stuff like Ricky Starks, I'd like to see him do some more stuff. Jungle Boy, I'd like to see them do more stuff with him. Bobby Allen, I'm getting a bit fed up with the fact that they keep doing the same kind of gimmick with him all the time, when the guy is so phenomenally talented that I want to see him do more work with upper tier talent, push him onto the next level, up his game a bit. When he doesn't need to up his game, but put him up a tier, get him competing for more of those titles that like. I'd love to see him get a chance at the world title. I think that would be really cool in AEW for him. FTR want to, there's so many, because the one thing for 2023 that I hope we get is, I hope we continue to get this choice of content for wrestling and sports entertainment that we've had continue. I want to see that level continue. I don't want to see one company buy out the other. I want to see that diversity of content we've got, because we've got a phenomenal amount. We've got Ring of Honor now under AEW's bandwagon. We've got AEW, you've got WWE, you've got NWA, you've got ECW, you've got Impact, you've got New Japan, you've got all of the other Japanese brands that I could go in and list that are available on different formats. It's just so much. I hope that we don't see that stagnate and lose that. I hope we continue to see that grow, and the accessibility to that content, thanks to people like Fight TV and other streaming platforms. I hope we can see that grow as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot that's already been covered in predictions. The only one I have that hasn't been mentioned, or don't think has been mentioned, is that with the whole Sasha Banks thing of her going to Japan. Would she come back? Would there be another Forbidden Door that's open? That maybe they'd have more female talent, like Japanese stars, come to WWE? Because there was rumour of, the name escapes me now, unfortunately, and I apologise, of one female wrestler in particular coming back or joining the Royal Rumble as Sasha is joining for the Wrestle Kingdom, and then maybe she hears word of it and then comes back and then they clash, sort of thing. That's the only thing I can think of at the moment, because loads of people have said so many and I don't want to copy. So it's just a case of, you don't know what is going to happen. Yeah.
I'd like to see that as another thing, actually. I think then, based on what you said there, right, I'd love to see the unpredictability of this last year continue.
Yes, definitely. I don't want it to be a quiet year now after everything that's happened. I want it to continue, because I have really enjoyed this roller coaster of a year. I mean, obviously it had ups and downs, but it is a case of, so what's going to happen today? Because the year before we had terrible, like virtually every other week someone was getting fired, and it was such a downer. And at least this year you have like a lot of more highs. Well, a bit more highs than lows than there was last year. There was more lows, I think, last year than there was highs. You know, you get what I mean. We've had a lot more good news this year, and I want it to continue in regards to that. But also, like you said before, I don't want Triple H to work himself into a point that he's going to make himself sick, because obviously, and that was another thing we didn't say, he officially retired at WrestleMania. He left the boots, he said his goodbyes, left. I think that was the second night, wasn't it? It wasn't the first night.
He did the whole boots.
Yeah, and just, I think the championship there was there, and he just said his goodbyes, walked away. That was it. Just carried on, but yeah, I just hope he does not work himself to the ground, takes it steady. I hope Regal comes back and helps him in regards to that. I think him, Regal, and Michaels would probably be a good trio to help in regards to running the company and taking it in turns. Obviously, Shawn has NXT. Regal could probably help with. I mean, there was rumours saying he could take over from Adam Pearce's role as the commissioner, not commissioner of Raw and SmackDown, because that was an ongoing joke. But yeah, I just hope next year there is still more highs than there is lows, and yeah, that. Yeah.
I think the key people with the keys to the kingdom now this year have changed dramatically. Tony Khan has got more power over the last 12 months than what he's had in terms of the shedding of responsibilities, if rumours to be believed that he has more of the production responsibility, etc., and the creative control. He's got that. He's willing to splash the cash to bring in the people, and there's no door for him which is forbidden. Actually, going back on what I said, the Forbidden Door pay-per-view with AEW was a good one for me as well. I did enjoy. But I would say that because that guard has changed in both WWE and AEW now, what you're faced with is this opportunity here to have some incredible things happen in both areas. So will the door with the New Japan and WWE stay open? Possibly not, because there has been some friction with the WWE and New Japan, especially with the likes of the Good Brothers being contracted to appear in WWE, and that kind of didn't go over too well with New Japan either. So there are still some friction points here and there, but I think it could. The good thing that 2022 has taught us is never say never now with both companies, because you just don't know. No,
you don't know what you're going to hear the next day, or what you're going to read on Twitter, because nothing is secret anymore. Nothing is a surprise anymore. The cave, like, obviously the element of surprise gone. You know, you hear rumours of obviously Bray Wyatt. We knew that was like the worst kept secret, but they kept on advertising it anyway. But before that, it was the case of they brought it along. But yeah, nothing is hidden anymore. You know, you have people like Wrestle Votes as well, who brings up a lot of stuff on Twitter, and obviously you have very many news segments as well. Sean Ross Sapp is also another one who
Fightful Select.
Yeah,
Meltzer.
Yep, exactly.
Wrestling Observer Radio. There, all these people with all these insider scoops. It's like, it's nuts, really, isn't it?
It is. It's amazing how they get their word across. You know, all the news. Well.
Yeah, well, it's been a year of incredible news, in a year of shocks, surprises, not just in the ring but outside of it. I think is the better way to look at it, and I think it puts 2023 is looking back at 2022 going, oh god, how do I follow this?
And luckily it kind of came through in the end. I think had a rocky beginning, and then it kind of got better.
But the future for 2023 is thinking, yep, okay, don't know how I'm going to top that. So, yeah.
I mean, nothing can really top, like, obviously one of the biggest things we heard this year, but it can only get better, I suppose. But hopefully we don't have anything that kind of diminishes both brands or even other brands as well, because obviously we don't really, you did mention Impact and other companies, even NWA has been going through some stuff as well, but hopefully in the new year things...
who knows, you just said that the NWA, just maybe Nick Aldis, who knows, we could see Nick Aldis in WWE
you never
or
know.
even in AEW over the next year, so you never know. I think Nick Aldis is married to Mickie James, so there is a high likelihood he could turn up again in Impact Wrestling. So
yep,
you just don't know, and that's the glory. I think that's part of the joy of what's happened in the last 12 months. It is, again, it's bust open that door of opportunity for everyone.
Yeah, very much so. I think we'll call it a wrap up there. We've definitely covered the majority of stuff. So yeah, that's our 2022 of wrestling in a nutshell. We might do this again next year. Hopefully it'll be a bit just as entertaining as this year gone, and hopefully your laptop will be working.
Yeah, that's the plan for 2023 is get a better laptop.
Hopefully I have a better webcam as well. Hopefully I'm trying to, I want the words of, I can't even talk. I'm trying to upgrade it anyway. But yes, thank you so much, Stu, once again for joining me. It's been a pleasure. And where can people find you?
Stu Claw on Twitter, same on YouTube. Just look me up on there. Got some of my interviews from some of the events that I'll be at and I've been at throughout the year. And you can also find me at the MegaCon events, MegaCon Live in Dublin, the end of January, and also in March, and in Manchester in July. So Birmingham in March and Manchester in July. So yeah, I'll be out and about on the stages there. So please do pop along to those events, say hello, and yeah, that's it. That's where you can find me.
Yeah, and this is the last video on this channel for 2022 because I'm going to upload this. We're the 30th now. Yep, cheers. It's the 30th now. I'll probably upload this by the 31st. So yeah, Happy New Year, everyone, and here's to...
Yeah, and and I'm sure I speak for all of the people who've been watching your content in 2022. Thank you, Harriet, for all the work you've done and all the great content you've been putting out into the YouTube sphere. It's been much appreciated from all of us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you so much for joining me as well, because we've done streams as well throughout the year, which has been great. And yeah, thank you to everyone who has watched the channel in the last year. We're slowly growing. There's only going to be hopefully more content in the next year. Hopefully more wrestling stuff as well. I'd like to delve back into that a little bit. But yes, thank you all so much for watching. Truly appreciate it as always. Click on the bell below so you know when I upload new videos. Leave a like, subscribe, all that jazz, and I shall chat to you all soon. Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!